The Grand Conclave of the Galactic Concord was a spectacle of millennia of civilization. The air in the immense domed chamber was thick with the scent of ozone, pheromones, and the quiet hum of translation fields. Delegates from 100 species sat, perched, or floated in their designated tiers, a living tapestry of claws, tentacles, chitin, and fur. At the center of the polished obsidian floor stood the petitioner's circle. Today, it was occupied by 3 humans. Ambassador Elias Vance, a tall, gray-templed man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, stood with a calm stillness that seemed to absorb the nervous energy of his companions. To his right was Dr. Anya Sharma, the xenopsychologist, her data slate held firmly, her eyes scanning the assembly with academic intensity. To his left, slouching with an air of profound boredom, was the reason for their precarious position, Specialist Kaito, Sonic Jones. Sonic was not diplomatic corps. He was a crisis response technician, an expert in high-speed retrieval and unconventional problem-solving. His uniform was standard issue, but rumpled, and on his feet were a pair of ancient, shockingly vibrant red sneakers with a faded golden wing logo. They were, by conclave standards, an unspeakable breach of solemnity. The charge was catastrophic cultural contamination. The event, the rescue of the Cuthari Nest Queen Matriarch Vral from a collapsing orbital habitat. The humans had been the closest ship. Sonic had been the one to suit up and go in. The rescue was a success. The method was the scandal. The petitioner may present its mitigation for the transgression, intoned the voice of the conclave, a shimmering holographic entity representing the collective will of the eldest races. Ambassador Vance bowed slightly. Esteemed conclave, we acknowledge the distress caused to the Cathari during the rescue operation of their revered matriarch. Our actions, while unorthodox, were driven solely by urgency and the imperative to preserve life. On the Cathari tier, the delegation was a cluster of iridescent insectoid figures. Their speaker, Krizk, clacked its mandibles, a sound translated as cold fury. Your rescue was a desecration. A non-sworn, unbonded male touched the sacred carapace of the matriarch. He transported her not in a consecrated recovery capsule, but slung over his shoulder like a sack of grain. He entered the sacred nesting chamber with those. Chris pointed a trembling claw at Sonic's sneakers, defiling the sanctified pollen mats. The trauma has silenced her song. The contamination is absolute. Dr. Sharma adjusted her glasses. With respect, Speaker Kruzk, our medical scans indicate Matriarch Viral is in excellent physiological health. The silence is likely a temporary stress response. Specialist Jones's actions, while lacking in ceremonial grace, followed the most efficient path of egress amidst structural failure. His footwear, she glanced at the sneakers with a faint sigh, are specially modified for tactile grip and dampened impact, which allowed him to navigate the unstable debris without jostling the matriarch. Efficiency is not purity, hissed a Selenian delegate, a being of crystalline form. Your species' obsession with pragmatic shortcuts reveals a profound spiritual emptiness. You see a life to save. The Cathari see a sacred tapestry torn by grubby hands. The debate swirled. The Arkal, predators with a brutal code of honor, grudgingly admired Sonic's direct action, but disapproved of his lack of a formal challenge. The ethereal Gahel, who communicated via bioluminescent patterns, pulsed with waves of mild disgust at the blunt kinetic chaos of the rescue. The humans were being judged, and the judgment was not on the outcome, but on the aesthetics, the protocol, the intangible sacredness they had allegedly trampled. Sonic, through it all, examined the intricate carvings on the ceiling. He shifted his weight from one sneaker to the other, the soft squeak of rubber on obsidian echoing in a momentary lull. A wave of annoyed ripples passed through the Gahel. Vance shot him a look that could freeze a star. Sonic stilled, but his expression remained that of a man counting the seconds until he could leave. The core of the issue, Vance pressed on, his voice a masterclass in measured diplomacy, is a difference in context. Humanity's concept of reverence is often expressed through action, the preservation of life being the highest form of respect we know. We propose a period of joint cultural immersion. Let our healers work with yours to soothe the matriarch. Let us learn the nuances of your ways. Krzak reared back. Further exposure to the very source of the contamination? Your arrogance is as vast as your ignorance. It was then that a new, deeper chime resonated through the chamber. All eyes turned to the highest, most shadowy tier reserved for the Ix. They were the oldest, most powerful members, rarely speaking, always observing. An Ix delegate, A creature that resembled a many-armed statue of black stone stirred. Its voice was like grinding tectonic plates, felt in the bones more than heard. The noise? From the small one's coverings. It is persistent. Explain its function. The conclave fell silent. They were not asking about life-saving techniques or cultural sensitivity, they were asking about the sneakers. Vance's diplomatic composure faltered for a microsecond. Dr. Sharma's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sonic looked up, meeting the dark, fathomless pits that served as the X's eyes. He shrugged. The squeak? That's just the air cushion in the heel. Lets me know the shock absorption is working. Also, he added, a faint, irreverent grin touching his lips. It's really good for annoying people who need annoying. A horrified gasp swept the tears. Vance closed his eyes, imagining his career vaporizing. Dr. Sharma looked faint. But from the exterior, there came a low rumbling sound. A vibration that the translators, after a confused delay, rendered as amusement. A feedback mechanism. A deliberate auditory signature. The coverings are not mere protection, they are communication. This has relevance. Before anyone could process this, alarms blared not conclave formality chimes, but raw, urgent security alerts. The voice of the conclave flickered. A containment breach. Level 9. The archaeological vault. The vault held the galaxy's most dangerous relics, artifacts from dead civilizations too potent to be studied, only stored. A shimmering, unstable vortex had appeared in the vault's heart, an accidental byproduct of a misaligned stasis field. It was slowly expanding, emitting waves of chaotic energy that dissolved matter and scrambled neural patterns. Automated defenses were failing. The Conclave's own security forces, bound by 1,000 protocols, were paralyzed, trying to find a solution that fit their rulebooks. Chaos erupted. Delegates scrambled for emergency exits. The IX remained an island of stillness. The Blackstone delegate pointed a slow, deliberate limb towards the humans, then towards the vault schematic now displayed. The noisemakers, send them! They are unbound by the song, they move in discord, the breach is discord. It was not a request, it was a verdict. The conclave of claws, suits, and sneakers had reached its first, desperate consensus. Send the chaotic, protocol-ignoring human in the loud shoes into the heart of the chaos. Ambassador Vance stared, his grand diplomatic strategy in ruins. Dr. Sharma's mind raced with terrifying possibilities. And Sonic Jones just cracked his neck, a spark of focused energy finally replacing the boredom in his eyes. About time, he muttered, and took off at a sprint, the sharp squeak of his sneakers cutting through the panic as he headed not for the exit, but deeper into the conclave's sacred heart. The path to the level 9 vault was a descent into pandemonium. Stabilized gravity fields flickered, causing delegates to float or stumble. Strange. Harmonic shrieks, the sound of reality fraying, echoed from the lower levels. Sonic Jones moved through it, not like a diplomat navigating a crisis, but like a technician heading to a job site. His red sneakers, their specialized soles automatically adjusting grip with each step, carried him past panicked insectoid Cathari, around hulking, confused Arcal warriors, and under pulsing, distressed Gel. He arrived at the vault's massive entrance blast door. A cluster of conclave security officers, their species varied but their expressions uniformly terrified, were arguing over access codes and containment procedure, subchapter 9. The door was partly open, a meter-wide gap, but waves of visible distortion, like heat haze filled with prismatic shards, wafted out. Where they touched the wall, the molecular bonded alloy pitted and smoked. "You cannot enter!" A moth-like Zell security chief fluttered, blocking his path. "The discordance field will unravel your neural cohesion. Protocol demands a full harmonic dampening team, which is 16 cycles from assembly." Sonic didn't bother arguing. He pointed past the chief. "Your dampening field generator, the big glowy ring thing, looks like it's about to overload." The chief turned. In that split second, Sonic ducked under its arm, planted a hand on the edge of the shuttering blast door, and kicked off with his sneakers, launching himself sideways through the gap in a move that was pure parkour. The last thing the security team heard was the sharp squeak of rubber against metal. Then he was gone, swallowed by the kaleidoscopic chaos inside. The vault was not a room, it was a universe of wrongness. The vortex, a spinning wound in space itself, hovered in the center, sucking in light and spewing out corrosive rainbow energy. Shelves of relics dissolved at the edges. A statue of a forgotten god wept molten stone. The very air buzzed with a frequency that made Sonic's teeth ache and his vision blur. It was a sound that demanded obedience, a chaotic order that promised madness. His comms crackled. It was Dr. Anya Sharma, her voice strained but clear, patched in from the conclave chamber. Sonic, the Ix are analyzing the breach frequency. It's not random. It's a pattern, a recursive, self-consuming harmonic logic. It collapses any ordered thought or action that interacts with it. Do you understand? Sonic dodged a falling stream of liquefied data crystal, rolling behind a plinth holding a dormant war machine. So thinking too hard about it is bad. Got it. Precisely. Your neurological profile, your propensity for instinctive, nonlinear action, it might provide a temporary resistance. But you need to reach the primary stasis generator. It's behind the vortex. You must realign the emitters manually. On the plinth, the war machine, activated by the discordant energy, began to hum, targeting lenses glowing. Sonic didn't analyze its weapon systems. He saw a heavy, stable object. He kicked it hard, right into the path of a sweeping distortion wave. The machine dissolved into glittering dust. Path cleared, mostly. Up in the conclave chamber, the delegates watched on security feeds, their horror now mixed with a dawning, unwilling fascination. They saw the human not fight the chaos, but flow with it. He didn't walk in straight lines. He vaulted, slid, and rolled in seemingly irrational paths that they slowly realized perfectly avoided the most intense waves of discordance. He used falling debris as stepping stones, swung on shredded conduits, and his every move was punctuated by that infuriating rhythmic squeak, squeak, squeak. The Kathari Krisk watched mandibles slack. He moves, like prey avoiding a predator's strike. But there is no predator, only chaos. The Arcall ambassador leaned forward, a growl of appreciation in its throat. He does not plan, he reacts. It is the fight instinct, pure. The Ix rumbled, their grinding voices a conference among themselves. The auditory signature, it is a counter-rhythm. Unplanned, unharmonious, it disrupts the pattern's attempt to lock onto his cognitive processes. Sonic reached the base of the dais holding the stasis generator. The vortex spun directly above it, tendrils of disintegrating energy licking down. The control panel was a mess of melted crystal and sparking wires. Dr. Sharma's voice was urgent. The manual override is a physical key, a resonant rod in a slot at the top. You have to insert and turn it. The rod was there, glowing faintly blue. The slot was at the very top of the generator housing, 3 meters up, directly under the hungriest part of the vortex. A ladder had once been there, now it was a puddle of slag on the floor. Sonic looked at the dais, at the generator, at the swirling doom above. He backed up several paces. In the conclave chamber, Ambassador Vance whispered, "What is he doing? He can't possibly jump that." Sonic took a deep breath, his eyes calculating distances, angles, the rhythm of the sweeping energy tendrils. He focused not on the overwhelming problem, but on the sequence of movements. The first step, the kickoff, the grip. He ran, not away, but straight at the curved sheer face of the generator housing. His sneakers hit the polished metal. Instead of slipping, they gripped with a shrieking protest. He ran up the wall, 2 steps, 3, defying gravity through sheer momentum and friction. At the apex of his ascent, as gravity finally reclaimed him, he lunged sideways, snatching the resonant rod from its bracket. He fell, twisted in midair, and slammed the rod into the waiting slot on his way down. He hung from it, his weight providing the turning force. A deep, clean thrum pulsed through the vault. The stasis generator flared with white light. The vortex shuddered, its chaotic rainbow hues beginning to spin in reverse. The discordant shriek wavered, pitched up, and then collapsed into a sound like a shattering crystal cord. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of cooling metal and the soft thud as Sonic dropped to the floor, rolling to absorb the impact. He lay on his back for a second, staring at the now stable, shrinking pinprick of light where the vortex had been. Then he sat up, brushed debris off his uniform, and looked straight at the nearest security camera. He gave a thumbs up. In the conclave chamber, the silence was absolute. Then, the Ix-delegate who had first spoken let out that grinding, tectonic sound of amusement, again, louder this time. The tool was fit for the task. It was not the claw that strikes with precision, nor the suit that argues with reason. It was the sneaker that ignores the path and finds the grip. Kruzg, the Ktari speaker, was trembling. but not with anger. It was with a revelation. He moved to save the conclave itself with the same disregard for form that he used to save the matriarch. The intent was not desecration, it was a different kind of focus. A focus on the goal, not the steps. Ambassador Vance saw the opening, vast and sudden. He rose, his suit immaculate, his voice ringing with new conviction. Esteemed conclave, you have witnessed it. Humanity does not ignore your ways out of disrespect. We have simply forged our own tools for survival. Sometimes, the most sacred thing is not the protocol, but the result. Sometimes, you need a different kind of step to walk through chaos. He looked at the screen, where Sonic was now limping slightly, inspecting a scuff on his beloved sneaker. The crisis was over. The real negotiation, Vance knew, was just beginning. And for the first time, the Conclave was looking at the humans not as clumsy children, but as possessors of a strange, unpredictable, and suddenly invaluable skill. The atmosphere in the Grand Conclave chamber had transformed. The air of solemn, disdainful judgment was gone, replaced by a buzzing, uneasy curiosity. The security feed still showed the vault, now bathed in the calm blue light of stabilized fields, with medics checking on Specialist Jones. But all eyes were on the three humans in the petitioner's circle. Ambassador Elias Vance stood tall, the calculated calm back in his demeanor, but now underpinned by a tangible strength. Dr. Anya Sharma held her data slate, not like a shield, but like a pointer, ready to illustrate a thesis that had just been violently proven. And on the screen, Sonic Jones was arguing with a medic about replacing his scuffed sneaker, claiming the broken-in grip was vital. The ex-delegate's grinding voice silenced the murmurs. The tool has demonstrated its function. The Conclave has witnessed a paradox. Chaos applied to quell chaos. This requires reevaluation. Speaker Krisk of the Qatari stepped forward. The fury had drained from its posture, replaced by a painful, rigorous honesty. The human's action in the vault, it was a mirror. He faced ultimate discord with a mind that did not try to sing along, but to fix the instrument. It turned its complex eyes to Vance. You claim his rescue of the matriarch was of the same nature, not a desecration, but a bypassing of song to preserve the singer. Vance bowed his head. Exactly, Speaker. We hear your song, we respect its beauty and complexity, but in an emergency, our first instinct is to ensure the singer lives to sing again. We use the tools we have, speed, improvisation, and yes, sometimes shoes that squeak. A Selenian delegate, its crystalline form reflecting the chamber's light in agitated patterns, chimed in. This is a dangerous philosophy. It makes a virtue of disorder. Your specialist is an unguided missile. What is to prevent such pragmatic disrespect from causing harm elsewhere? Dr. Sharma spoke now, her voice clear and academic. A fair question. The answer is context and training. Specialist Jones is not unguided. He is guided by intense training in physics, structural engineering, and xenobiology. His actions appear instinctive because his training has been internalized to the point of reflex. He knew the Cathari carapace could withstand the grip. He calculated the structural weaknesses of the habitat subconsciously. He is not chaos. He's applied chaos theory. The Conclave absorbed this. The Archal ambassador snarled, a sound of approval. So, the small fighter mind is a weapon, sharpened by knowledge. This we understand. His battle was not with claws, but with falling stone and bad air. He won. But the coverings, insisted the Gahal delegate, pulsing with mild, persistent distress. The auditory offense remains. It is a symbol of this abrasive philosophy. On the screen, Sonic, having won his argument with the medic, was walking in a slow circle, testing his sneakers. The familiar, soft squeak was picked up by the sensitive audio feeds and broadcast through the silent chamber. Vance smiled. A genuine human expression. A symbol, yes, but perhaps not the one you think. To us, those shoes are a symbol of something else. They are not for ceremony. They are for action. They are worn by those who run towards the collapse, not away from it. The sound you find abrasive is to us the sound of traction. The sound of a grip being found where there seems to be none. He let that hang in the air. The metaphor was almost poetic, and it landed with unexpected weight. The Ix rumbled, a conference among themselves. Finally, the lead delegate spoke. The conclave's judgment is rendered. Charge of catastrophic cultural contamination negated. The human rescue was an application of a foreign but valid operational paradigm. However, a black stone limb rose, pointing at the humans. A new designation is required. Humanity shall be recognized not as a full member of the harmonic chorus, but as a specialist species. Your role is not to sing the old songs, but to act as the restorers of silence when the song breaks. You are the dissonance that corrects the greater dissonance. This is your place. It was a monumental shift, not full equal membership with a vote in the slow, beautiful, bureaucratic chorus of the galaxy. They were being hired as the galactic handymen, the crisis solvers, the ones you call when the protocols fail and reality itself starts to come apart at the seams. It was a niche, but it was powerful. It was them. Vance knew this was the best possible outcome, a recognition of their unique value on their own terms. The Terran Accord accepts the designation of specialist species with gratitude, he said, his voice firm. The Ix delegate then did something unprecedented. It addressed the screen directly. Small noisemaker, you have a query. Sonic, who had been trying to scrape some alien grime off his soul, looked up, startled. Yeah, the matriarch, the quiet one. Can I see her? A new wave of shock rippled through the chamber. Krzk stiffened. The sacred nesting chamber is forbidden. The trauma. I just want to show her something, Sonic interrupted, his usual irreverence softened by something that looked oddly like respect. No touching, I promise, from the door. After a long, tense silence and a slow, approving pulse from the Ix, Krzk gave a stiff, reluctant nod. The scene shifted to the entrance of the Cathari nesting chamber aboard their orbital barge. It was a warm, humid space filled with soft, fragrant pollen mats. In the center, the majestic, iridescent matriarch Vral sat, still and silent, her song absent. Krzk and two other Cathari stood guard, rigid with tension. Sonic stood at the threshold, respecting the line. He didn't bow or recite a formula, he simply sat down, cross-legged on the deck, right at the edge of the forbidden space. He took off his left sneaker. In the conclave chamber and on 100 screens, the entire galaxy watched, utterly confused. Sonic held up the sneaker. He pointed to the scuffed toe, the frayed lace, the worn down tread. See this? He said, his voice quiet, conversational. This is from the habitat strut that was going to crush your nesting room. I kicked it aside. He pointed to a deep gouge along the side. This is from the sharp edge of the conduit I used to swing over a plasma leak. He turned the shoe, showing the sole. And this wear pattern? That's from running full tilt with extra weight on my shoulders. He finally looked at the silent matriarch. They're not pretty, they're loud, they break all your rules, but every single mark on them is from getting you out. He put the shoe back on, laced it up with careful deliberation, and stood. The silence is okay. You take your time. But just so you know, the song you're not singing, I can hear it. It's in the fact that you're here to be silent. He gave a small, awkward nod, then turned and walked away, his steps, for once, utterly silent on the soft deck. Back in the conclave, the Gahel delegate pulsed with a slow, deep blue light, a color the translators identified as profound contemplation. The Archcall gave a grunt that was almost a sigh. The Selenian's facets glimmered with a softer light. And in the nesting chamber, Matriarch Vral, after a long, still moment, very slowly raised one delicate, iridescent forelimb. She touched her own carapace, where Sonic had gripped her. Then she began to vibrate. It started softly, a low hum that grew into a complex, gentle, clicking melody. It was not her old grand song. It was something new. A song of quiet resilience. A song that remembered the grip, not as a violation, but as a strange, firm kindness. Krzyzk trembled, listening to the new song of its matriarch. It turned its head towards the departing human and made a soft click of its own, a Cathari word the translators hastily rendered understood. Ambassador Vance looked at Dr. Sharma, a world of meaning passing between them. They had come to argue their case with words and reason. In the end, it was a scuffed, squeaky sneaker and a few plain words that had done the real negotiating. Humanity had its place. They were the ones who would get the call when the music stopped. And as Specialist Kaido Sonic Jones disappeared down the corridor, the sound of his sneakers once again beginning to squeak against the clean deck, Vance knew they were ready. The Council of Claws and Suits had just made room for the sneakers.